By the late 17th century, the Indian Ocean was one of the busiest trade corridors in the world. Every year, monsoons carried merchant ships between India, Arabia, and Europe on fixed seasonal routes. Their cargo was dense and valuable. Silver bullion, spices, silk, and textiles packed into vessels that followed the same paths again and again. That predictability created opportunity. Sailors who abandoned merchant service or escaped naval discipline learned the same winds and routes. They knew when convoys would appear, how long escorts could stay together, and where ships would be forced to slow or separate. One successful plunder could pay more than years of honest work. Off the northeast coast of Madagascar lay a smaller island, Sainte-Marie. It had narrow channels, sheltered bays, fresh water close to shore, and forests suitable for repairs. Ships could anchor out of sight, refit quickly, and leave with the changing winds. Pirate crews did not settle here to build anything permanent. They arrived damaged, rigging torn, hulls fouled, men wounded or sick. Sainte-Marie gave them time to repair ships, time to divide plunder, time to decide whether the next voyage was worth the risk. Some of the most notorious crews in piracy's brief Indian Ocean peak passed through these waters. After the capture of the Mughal treasure ship Ganj-i-Sawai in 1695, members of Henry Avery's crew returned with wealth so immense it triggered a diplomatic crisis. Thomas, too, used the island as a staging point before sailing north, where he was killed in battle. William Kidd anchored briefly, still believing his commissions might protect him. Each visit followed the same pattern: arrival, repair, trade, departure. No laws beyond what a crew enforced among itself, and Sainte-Marie was not a state or a city. It was a pause between the violence. But as more ships passed through, stories began to spread, first among sailors, then in ports, then in print. Tales of pirates who elected their leaders, of crews who divided wealth equally, of a place beyond kings and companies. What existed in reality was fragile and temporary, but what people began to imagine was something else entirely. A pirate ship arriving at Sainte-Marie came in battered. Sails were patched with whatever cloth remained. Hulls scraped shallow water as crews hurried to anchor before damage worsened. Men who had spent months at sea jumped into waist-deep surf to secure lines. The first priority was always the ship. Without it, nothing else mattered. Crews hauled vessels onto sandbanks and rolled them on their sides to clean the hulls. Barnacles were chipped away, leaks were plugged with tar and scrap. Broken spars were replaced using timber cut inland. Fresh water was drawn quickly before sickness spread. Only after that did trade begin. Nothing on Sainte-Marie was free. Food came from nearby Malagasy communities: rice, fruit, livestock, exchanged for cloth, metal tools, weapons, or stolen cargo. As long as pirates paid and kept violence contained, trade continued. When crews grew drunk, reckless, or desperate, the flow stopped. Pirates brought goods, but also risk. Local leaders understood that European retaliation could follow them to shore. Every deal was a calculation. Among the pirates themselves, order depended on agreement rather than force. Most crews operated under written articles set before a voyage. Captains were elected and could be removed. Loot was divided by shares. Injuries came with compensation. A lost arm or leg had a price. Compared to merchant or naval service, it felt fair. That sense of control attracted people. Sailors deserted passing ships and slipped ashore. Freed Africans joined crews that offered pay and a voice. Some pirates married into Malagasy families, tying themselves into local politics and protection networks. Those marriages brought security, but also obligation. A pirate tied to the island could not simply vanish when trouble came. Conflict was constant. Arguments over shares turned into fights. Drunken disputes ended with knives drawn. When a voyage failed, the rules were tested. Hunger and illness stripped away any illusion of equality. Famous captains passed through quickly. Thomas, too, outfitted his ship here, recruited men, and sailed north to his death. William Kidd stayed just long enough to realize the political climate had shifted against him. No one stayed once their luck ran thin. Sainte-Marie was a revolving camp, ships arriving, ships leaving, graves slowly filling the ground between them. Yet from the outside, the pattern looked deliberate, a place beyond imperial control. In reality, everything here depended on timing, restraint, and luck, and all three were running out. The collapse began with a single capture that went too far. In 1695, pirates led by Henry Every seized the Mughal ship Ganj-i-Sawai. The vessel carried enormous wealth, and passengers connected to the Mughal court. Survivors reached India with detailed accounts of the violence and the loss. Their complaints went directly to Emperor Aurangzeb, and the response was swift and unforgiving. Aurangzeb threatened to shut English merchants out of India entirely. For the East India Company, that meant ruin. London moved immediately. Naval patrols were expanded, bounties increased, and captains were given broader authority to pursue pirates across the Indian Ocean. Madagascar was no longer ignored. Company warships began appearing on routes pirates once used freely. Merchant convoys sailed tighter and heavier. French officials moved to assert control along Madagascar's coast, turning informal anchorages into political liabilities. Traders who once welcomed pirate spending now feared retaliation and withdrew. At Sainte Marie, the change was obvious. Ships returned with smaller prizes or none at all. Crews arrived wounded, sick, and angry. Supplies ran short. Fresh water spoiled quickly in overcrowded camps. Disease spread faster than loot. The pressure exposed fault lines inside pirate crews. Shares meant little when there was nothing to divide. Captains lost authority. Mutinies broke out. Men deserted ashore or vanished onto passing ships. The same loose democracy that had attracted sailors made discipline difficult when conditions worsened. William Kidd's downfall made the new reality impossible to ignore. Once trusted with commissions to hunt pirates, he became labeled as one himself. His brief stop in Madagascar offered no protection. He was arrested, shipped to London, and executed. The message was clear: papers no longer mattered. Reputation no longer mattered. By the turn of the century, Sainte Marie was finished as a safe haven. A French post tightened oversight. Remaining pirates faced capture, sickness, or disappearance into local society. Ships stopped coming. Camps emptied. What vanished quickly was the place itself, but what lingered was the story people told about it, that somewhere on Madagascar's coast, pirates had once built a paradise for themselves. Nearly 30 years after the pirate anchorages collapsed, the story was rewritten, this time on paper. In 1724, a book appeared in London titled A General History of the Pirates. Its author used the name Captain Charles Johnson. No one has ever confirmed who he was. The book drew heavily from court records, trial transcripts, and newspaper reports. Many of its chapters described real men who had already been hanged. Then Johnson introduced something new. He described a pirate settlement on Madagascar's coast called Libertalia. According to the book, it was founded by a French captain named Misson. Misson and his crew, Johnson claimed, rejected monarchy, abolished slavery, elected their leaders, and shared wealth equally. Their flag was white, meant to represent peace rather than terror. It read less like reportage and more like a manifesto. The problem is that nothing outside the book supports it. No French naval records mention Misson. No correspondence, maps, or official complaints describe Libertalia. Excavations on Sainte Marie reveal graves and temporary camps, not streets, councils, or fortifications. To historians, the conclusion is straightforward. Libertalia was made up, but invention does not mean accident. Johnson was writing for a British audience living through political tension at home. Debates about parliament, monarchy, and rights were still fresh. Radical ideas circulated, but openly advocating them carried risk. A pirate republic placed far away in the Indian Ocean and safely in the past allowed readers to explore those ideas without consequence. Libertalia also solved a narrative problem. The real pirate presence on Madagascar had ended in failure, disease, betrayal, and execution. Johnson replaced that collapse with a vision of purpose and order. Where history offered scattered graves, the book offered a republic. Once printed, the story no longer depended on evidence. It depended on repetition. Pamphlets echoed it, writers copied it. Readers assumed it had to be true because it appeared alongside real names and real trials. The longer Libertalia was retold, the less anyone questioned where it came from. By the time scholars began separating fact from fiction, the story had already escaped its source. Libertalia had never existed on the ground, but in print, it was suddenly very real. When the pirate ship stopped coming, Madagascar did not return to how it had been before. Years of trade had already changed local life. Firearms circulated along the coast. New goods altered power balances between communities. Some families had gained protection and wealth through marriages and alliances with pirate crews. Others had suffered from violence, disease, or retaliation tied to pirate activity. The end of the anchorages did not erase those effects. For the pirates who survived, there was no collective ending. Some were captured and executed. Others died of illness or vanished into local society under new names. A few found their way back into legal service, their past quietly ignored as empires turned their attention elsewhere. In Europe, however, the story moved in the opposite direction. Libertalia became useful. 19th century writers repeated it as early proof that equality and shared rule could exist without kings. Popular historians treated Captain Charles Johnson's account as fact. The more it was copied, the more solid it seemed. By the 20th century, the pirate republic had fully crossed into fiction. It appeared in novels, children's books, and adventure stories. Later, it surfaced in films and games, including Uncharted 4, where Libertalia reappears as a lost city waiting to be discovered. The idea survived because it solved a problem history could not. The real pirate presence on Madagascar was temporary, unstable, and ended badly. Libertalia offered a cleaner ending, a place where rebellion succeeded, order replaced chaos, and outlaws became founders. There was never a pirate republic of Madagascar. There were harbors, bargains, fights, and graves. What endured wasn't a nation, but a story and trope powerful enough to outlive the people who inspired it.